Hello, my name is Justin Bright, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.8.1 in my next small step RP-1 playthrough. And we are moving on with our testing of the Thor-Able rocket, the Celes 1 that I have put together, doing a lot of tweaking and testing and iterating and so forth, and it's lovely and a lot of fun. We are going to be hopefully kind of varying the pace of things so it's not like a solid 30 or 40 minutes of me just talking design. Not that that's the worst thing in the world, I guess, but I'm hoping that there's a little bit more of a mix of launches and iteration and that sort of thing going forward. But, you know, it's always the pace of what the real game is. I'm not doing too much planning in advance of exactly what my sessions are going to look like. So it's kind of a grab bag, but let's get to it. All right, here we are on the pad with the Navstar B321. And we have thrust and release the rocket. There we go. So I have not been able to get this to work with PVG. I guess it's just I'm asking it to do things that it can't really do. But I guess it's fine. So what the problem that I keep having is, just like in the last one, it tries to fly horizontally at like 30 kilometers, and like if I try to adjust the ascent guidance so that it pitches down more slowly, it winds up instead, like I had it pitching below the horizon at 45 kilometers. If I had it overloft a little bit, like I had it on a 0.3 degree per second guidance, and I had it start at like 100 meters per second is when I started to pitch over. So I've done that, and then it pitched below the horizon and broke up in the atmosphere, because of course it did. It was trying to circularize an orbit at 50 kilometers. I'm not sure what it was that I was doing wrong, but I'm quite certain that I was doing something very wrong. So once again, if you have any tips on how to use this, please let me know in the comments below. I've been using the RP-1 wiki to try to figure this out, and I have not made much more progress than you see here. Trying to get into a very regular orbit with a booster has been just fine, but trying to use the ascent guidance for anything more than that has just not worked out for me. So anyways, that's fine. I'm sure it's just user error and me asking the program to do things that it is not normally capable of doing. The only downside to doing this manually is you can see the gimbal kind of flopping around and the verniers wiggling much more wildly than they should, but that's all right. It's not that big of a deal. So with this, the Navstar B, we are trying to get into a 850 kilometer circular orbit. That is going to be a little bit harder to do if I am doing it manually like this, so I'm just kind of flying an unoptimized trajectory, we're going to call it. Flying up at about a 45 degree angle, trying to get to that 850 kilometers without using my second stage. Just because the way that I have designed this rocket is it's really designed to nail a periapsis with the first stage booster by itself, and then begin circularizing from there. That is not how most rockets work. Most real rockets are going to use a first and second stage to get into your orbit, and then your upper stage to finish that orbit. But we are at 65 degrees, and we are wiggling. We are getting pretty darn close. Whoa! Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's going to have to be okay. I am going to go ahead and, because we are doing this manually, I'm going to move that up there and turn on our RCS. Move us down to orbital prograde, please, and thank you. So what I'm going to have to do now is I'm going to have to find a way to push ourselves into a slightly higher orbit. So I am going to push us to orbital prograde. And actually, what I could probably do, we are 6 minutes away from apoapsis, so we still have plenty of time to raise our apoapsis just a touch, because that's all we really need. So we are going to try to get our apoapsis up just because we have to get between 800 and 1,000 kilometers. We have hit our inclination, so that is really all we have to worry about. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening here, but it looks like I've lost persistent rotation because I hit my time warp and I halt, and that is definitely not working as intended. So I need to make sure that my install is correct, because that changes things. Like, I feel like I've had no problem with persistent rotation before this moment, but whatever. Okay, so we are just ahead. We are 3 minutes ahead of our apoapsis, so I am going to fire our thrusters to stabilize our propellant, and we are moving at orbital prograde. I am going to switch to killing our rotation. Rotate us around just a bit, just so that I can better see this. And fire this engine. There we go. So, like I said, the idea is we need to get to just over 800 kilometers of apoapsis, and the rest of it is just orbital speed that we're looking for here. All right, so we've had pretty good luck with our Thor-Able so far. I'm a little surprised we haven't had a failure on either of these launches. That's pretty fantastic. I'm really excited about that. Doing that early testing really seems to have helped. And we are building up the collected data on this so that it's not quite so dicey every time we launch this darn thing. Okay, so now we are getting real close, so it's time to start trimming a little bit. There we go. So now we are burning just about under the horizon, and we are up above an 800 kilometer apoapsis. Perfect. So now we just need to finish circularizing, or finish burning this stage to get that orbital speed, because we are going to need every ounce of this. I think one of the things that I was having trouble with PVG is that it was only using a little bit of this upper stage, which normally would make sense, but that's just not how I've designed this rocket. And like I said, the PVG doesn't know how you designed your rocket. It doesn't know about the atmosphere. So that's all stuff that you need to handle. And I was not able to figure out what the settings were to handle that particular scenario. So anyways, we are at an 881 kilometer apoapsis, or 881 kilometer apoapsis. We are still below, we are still not orbital, which is totally fine. We have a 67-degree orbit, so we are perfectly situated to successfully nail this orbit, hopefully. So we are rolling forward. We are just about at our the place where we are going to stop and then begin positioning this. So what this is I've called this Navstar B, and I think I came up with that kind of on my own, like not realizing that Navstar was actually the original name of the Global Positioning System, which is pretty darn cool. That was the original United States government global navigation satellite system that everybody uses in their cars to make sure that they can get down the street and all that sort of thing. So, ooh, have I lost? Am I out of? No, I'm still fine. It's just not. Oh yeah, it's. I'm wondering why I can't maneuver this, but I don't have control. Is the problem? That is a consistent problem. We are now over the ocean. Yeah, so that'll be a little bit dicey. Let's roll forward. I cannot get my communication satellites up and running soon enough. Looks like we have some kind of communications. No, maybe? Yes, I have connection. Okay, fantastic. So let's spin it up. Turn this off. We are just going to point straight down our prograde, which I think will be fine. We are going to turn on our, we are very stable. We have our ullage thrusters going. We've got a good spin going on, and there we go. All right, we are headed off, hopefully into not too high of an apoapsis. Or, no, the periapsis should be coming back around. Anyways, I hope that works. If it doesn't, then we are going to be kind of out of luck. So yeah, this is like an early GPS. So that is what this is going to be doing for us. It's not going to last very long. It's more of a prototype than anything else, really. And it is at that point that I've realized that I was supposed to circularize this orbit, not burn this whole stupid thing. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so this has been a weird little failure. I was not able to get my periapsis up fast enough in time to circularize this. I guess I kind of forgot. Like yeah, so mea culpa on this one, guys. That was, I kind of spaced out on how I was actually supposed to accomplish this mission. I was only supposed to circularize, but I was not able to get my periapsis up over 800,000 meters until I was at a 15 million meter apoapsis, which, you know, is not super helpful. So yeah, this is not going to work for that, but we are going to be getting science, which is really good. So at least there's that as a consolation prize. We're just going to go ahead and decouple that and call that a successful failure. All right, so Navstar B has crapped out on us with us just shy of another 19 science, which we'll get that before we finish this technology, so we'll be able to keep rolling that forward. But you'll notice, like, we're really starting to roll science in much faster now, which is fantastic. All right, after 2 of these rockets not quite working right, or at least not the way that I thought that I had designed it, I went in and I kind of played around with a couple things and tried out some new parts, and wound up going back to my original design but fixing some stuff. So you'll notice that all of a sudden we've got an extra like 3,000 meters per second of delta V that I've like found between the couch cushions or something. So what I've done is I've updated just a couple things in the staging, honestly. Because the staging was fooling MacLeod into thinking that there was less delta V than there already was, and I'm not sure if there's something that I did wrong here, but all right, so if I have, like, for example, on this conic procedural payload fairing in between these stages that I just have as a decorative and aerodynamic element, if I have it off, then you see the delta V is about what I've experienced. But if I turn it back on, nothing changes because sure. Okay, of course, now that I'm actually trying to show this, I'm not able to recreate the issue that I was experiencing. But anyways, I had these 2 fairings, these payload fairings, my boat tail down here and my interstage fairing here. They were here, they were exactly where they are, but when I was when they were in this staging like this, they it was altering the delta V readout. And so MacLeod thought that I had a lot less delta V than I actually did. And now, of course, I can't duplicate it, so I really don't know what to tell you on that one. But anyways, that's just one issue that I've been having. It does seem to happen when I have this decoupler that's just in between the my new payload and the upper stage. If I have that decoupler in the staging menu, like if I activate it here, you see we've lost a whole bunch of delta V for reasons I'm not sure I understand. Theoretically, it should like be counting this so that I'm burning this full stage and then decoupling this guy off the top, but it's acting as if I'm pretty sure it's acting as if it has some extra weight or something. I'm not really sure, but anyways, I was having something like that for a couple pieces of this this booster, and that's not just important for knowing how much delta V I have. It's really important for the MacLeod PVG, which was acting based on faulty information that was being passed in by my staging being weird. So I've turned off all of those fairing decouplers except for the ones that I actually want to be decoupling. I get this all set back up, get my staging corrected. Now my staging is a lot cleaner, which is also nice, but yeah, we have a much stronger readout. It shows that we have a ton more delta V, which is actually close to what I'm actually experiencing. My Thor stage down here on the S3D engine, or no, not the S3D engine, this is still just the S-3, gives us about a little bit under 7,000 meters per second. My Able upper stage here with the AJ1037 gives us another 2500, and then this Zasser-1 stage up on top gives us 4400 meters per second of delta V, which is in fact a big change from our previous one because I have updated the avionics throughout the rocket. So one thing is I've already forgotten my own lesson of shaving down payload. I got really excited by the new booster, the new upper stage and all that stuff. And I'm like, no, let's just make the biggest possible probe that we can and then just throw it all into orbit and we have plenty of delta V and everything's fine. And then it just didn't, I was shocked when it didn't work right and I wasn't able to get that much payload up. Not only is this a lot smaller and a lot lighter, if I get it angled right at the sun with this new bank of solar panels, which is actually the same exact bank of solar panels, but it just looks much bigger because it's, not a much smaller probe, I can get perpetual power. Like even running all of the experiments and the avionics and everything else, I can get perpetual power on this, which is amazing because I thought that I needed to pack a bigger and bigger battery. But as it turns out, if you shave certain things down, then you're able to make things work a lot better than you thought you could. So the changes that I've made is I removed the heavy magnetometer experiment. So we look at the magnetometer, it's 15 kilograms. That's gigantic for what we're trying to do. We do not have a booster strong enough to really throw a ton of weight around. So getting a payload that is, this payload here is 16 kilograms. That's a lot more reasonable compared to the 80 kilograms I was trying to throw around before. So 15 kilograms doubles the weight of this darn thing, so we really don't have the mass to play with there. So I've removed that and gone to basically just the lightest 3 experiments. And also shed one of the more power-hungry ones, the TV camera, which takes a constant 0.3 electric charge per minute, which makes this just not really work out. Although with the new setup, I could probably still have this work. Let's see. Visible imaging, yeah, no, that would kill it in just 15 hours. So you see, the Kerbalism menu allows you to turn on or turn off certain experiments and see how that would work with your power consumption. So if you turn everything on, yeah, with the visible imaging, you see that this thing only lasts about 15 hours. If I kill that, then we have perpetual run. I don't actually expect this to run perpetually because I'm not going to have control on the exact orientation of the upper stage to keep it pointed directly at sunlight, but it should last long enough. If you unload the craft when it has a pretty good orientation towards the sun and is getting a good percentage, then that can be good enough depending on how many experiments are running, because not all of these experiments are going to be running 100% of the time. So that's number 1. I also made sure that I was using the most advanced avionics that I possibly could, especially in the science core. I'm pretty sure I was using the right one there because that gives us the best power drain and all that stuff. And then shaving down the battery down to just 261.8 electric charge, down from like 10,000 or some, it wasn't 10,000, but anyways, whatever larger number it was, just so reduced the weight of this thing, the mass of this thing, that it made it much easier to use. I also went through and I turned off the built-in antennas because I now have the Commutatron 16, which in addition, between that and the CA-AO2 helical antenna, which is a bit of a chonker. So what I wound up doing was playing around a little bit with what Lunar Communications is going to look like for this craft. So we know that the moon is about 384 million meters away. So 386 megameters is probably going to be enough to keep us in communication. So on the procedural avionics, the built-in power transmitter, I was able to get lunar transmission at about 34 dBm. At that level of transmit power, which costs us about 33 watts when active and 0.3 when idle. You see that gives us 4 bits per second up and 1 bits per second down, and this is what is going to allow us to have science. I mean, I assume. I assume that even if we were at like this point where there's 0 up and 2 down, or 0 down and 2 up from Earth, I assume that that means that we have control but are not able to transmit science, but I've never actually been out at the edge of this to test, so I'm not 100% sure how that will work. That's one of those things that we're going to have to test and kind of see how that works. But that's the running assumption that I have while I'm trying to make this plan. So anyways, we get this back down to 380, yeah, 389 is fine. And we can see, oh, it's actually not fine. 385 is just above, yeah, that's close enough. At 34 dBm gets us 1 down, 4 up. But cost us 33 watts. To get the same level of power out of this Communotron 16, we're at 386, still on UHF, and that gives us, at 386 megameters, 33 dBm, we are able to get one down, 4 up, just like on here, but on the built-in module, it costs us 33 watts. On this extendable one, it costs us 26.25 watts, which is better. So it's a little bit better. It weighs a teensy bit more, I think like 1 kilogram more than, yeah, this is 6 kilograms, and adding an antenna to this, let's see, 14 kilograms, and then I check it again, it's 10 kilograms. So it's about 2 extra kilograms of weight. Of mass, but that reduces our power consumption, which is the biggest thing that I'm worried about when we are doing our lunar mission. So, long way to say that one thing that I ended up doing is I went through the whole rocket and I tried to optimize all of my communications, both for lunar missions and also for non-lunar missions, because with the new upgrade to the Deep Space Network that we got with Lunar Range Communications, we're able to communicate with Earth at a much lower power. So if we go down to like, okay, we're down to like only, 39 megameters gets us above around geostationary altitude. We're still getting 32 up, 32 down. Even if I drop the power down to like 28, so we're below the default, and that saves us a bunch of power. Look at how much power that saves. So yeah, we're able to tune down our antenna to use the minimum power that is needed to communicate at maximum speed, depending on the height that you're going to, and that's something that you'll want to play with as you are going through and designing your rocket. And it also means, as far as I can tell, that we don't need every single antenna to be up and running and working at all times. So to handle booster communications, I just use the built-in antenna on the avionics package that I have built into my Able upper stage, and that means I can turn off the one that's down here. So I just turn it off, and that saves me some weight, saves me some power. And on this one, I'm able to turn the transmit power way down, because this part is never gonna be very high. Like, it's never gonna be as high as this is. So I can tune, like, even if I turn this all the way down to 0 dBm transmit power, we're still getting maximum up and down. But I'm not sure that this is supposed to go all the way down to 0. That seems a little weird to me. Also, I didn't have the tech level up, which is a shame. So yeah, we've got that all the way down, and we'll just put this at 10 dBm, and that only costs 0.43 watts to be active. And so yeah, that's free power that we're going to be using. So hopefully I'm able to communicate through this at the beginning, and then I kind of swap up to this one when we need to communicate a little bit further out. So between making those upgrades of the avionics, and I'd also like to upgrade down here. All right, so one thing that I wanted to do was upgrade our guidance computers, but I've discovered that I just don't have the money to do that until I at least launch one more of these. So we still have some room for improvement. So what I've done is I've basically rolled this back to the point where I can use the tooled versions of my previous versions of these. But I have made the other changes to them, of like removing the electric charge from this one, bringing the electric charge down to like 500 units on this, and all of that stuff. So Yeah, these are fine. The biggest upgrade was in the science core that we have up on the our payload on our procedural avionics up here, and we will be tooling for that. So yeah, that's what we're going to do, and so we have one more upgrade once we actually have a bit more money, because there's just not enough money to do all of the things at once, and that's that's pretty much what RP-1 is kind of about, is making those trade-offs and making those choices as you go to optimize your rockets the best you possibly can with the technology you had at the time. Because the thing that I really enjoy about this is the constant progress of technology and finding you're able to do more and cooler things as you go up the tech tree. And not just like, oh, you've unlocked a new engine. Like, there's a lot of subtle things in between that do improve your life and are really interesting and fun to get to. So we are going to tool this, and basically that's just the size of the payload fairings, which is kind of a pain in the butt, but that's all right. I'm staring at this menu and I'm wondering if I never actually tooled the fairings on this before now, which would account for why this was yeah, that would account for exactly why this was so expensive. Goodness gracious. Yeah, so that increased the price and therefore increased the build time of this rocket, which is, I mean, that's a pretty, as far as user error goes, that's a pretty annoying one. That doesn't actually, anyways, it's not important what happened before. What happens now is I am going to tool this for just 3,000 funds, and that tools the fairings and the new avionics that we have up here, which means we just have 17,000 left. I have enough money to buy the new configuration for the flight computers for early avionics, but that wouldn't leave me enough to also tool the new avionics, because that is also a very expensive thing, a big lift that we are not going to be able to do right now, and also does not give me so much improvement that I'm stressed about it at this particular moment. So this is going to be how we do this particular rocket going forward. So with this little tiny payload, we are going to, instead of the big chonker of one that we had before, we are just going to add on. All right, so we've just tossed on the payload there, which is just a modular service module using the RO tanks instead of the procedural ones, which is pretty darn cool. Like, I really like the way these work. I haven't figured out how to like entirely replace everything I'm trying to do. Like, I don't know how to make this particular construction, like having the tank and then the avionics and then the other tank here, and having both of these tanks be the same size so they get the same tooling. Like, I haven't quite figured out how to use that and how to replace that with my everyday, but look at the cool things that you can do with these. Like, this looks really, really neat. But I'm not going to tool it, just like we never do for these service tank payloads, where it cost me 99 untooled but 5 tooled, which is a great thing if I'm ever going to use this exact size and shape again, which is not super likely. All we need is 60 units of navsat payload. Let me just double check that, make sure I'm not 60 units on the craft, navsat payload, sounds good. So yeah, that's what we're going to do with this, and there we go. And yeah, that looks like I actually already have a fairing of this size, which is great. And yeah, so all of that actually brought down our costs, because I think that these weren't tooled before, and that was driving the cost up quite a bit. Go there. Make sure our staging is all correct. Pretty good. And there we go. So yeah, this is what's going to be our the craft we're going to do a lot of our contracts with, and hopefully with these updates it actually works the way we hope it will. All right, so feeling pretty well vindicated as we come up on the rollout of the Navstar C, down to just under 5,000 funds, because we've built a second Celes 2 rocket to, for whatever we're going to be launching next. It's definitely going to be based on that architecture. So we definitely did not have the money to improve the avionics. So yeah, it's these kind of trade-offs that you make as you're trying to balance going as fast as you can and make as many improvements as you can with getting enough funds to keep your program moving forward. All right, Celes 2 rocket with the Navstar C payload on the pad, and we are going to start tweaking our autopilot parameters. So we want our inclination between 64 and 70. So we'll say 65 degrees. Everything else I think we can do pretty normally, and we want to tell MacLeod to circularize this orbit at about 900 kilometers. And in testing, that has worked fine, but I guess we'll see how that goes. So let's go ahead and engage the autopilot. Hope that this actually launches. 3, 2, 1, ignition. Fabulous. We have thrust and release. All right, so off we go. So yeah, this has worked a lot better. I've found that it's much better controlled. It spinning a little bit wildly around in a circle there, but it seems to know what it's doing as far as pointing itself in the exact right direction. And that's kind of one of the big things that I really like using MacLeod's PVG, is so that it knows exactly where we need to be pointing to get to the inclination that we're going to. And I would have to kind of guess, especially before we have maneuver nodes, which we're about to get, and I'm really excited about, but we don't have it yet. So once we have maneuver nodes, I'm going to be able to rely on that a little bit more. But yeah, there's no reason not to launch directly into the proper inclination. Like, we have the booster that's capable of doing it. So really, why not do it? All right, flying through the clouds over Kennedy Space Center. Yeah, so it seems to be flying a lot better. We're still getting down to 45 degrees at 10,000 meters, but we are pitching down in a way that is a lot more sustainable. And you can see that this is once again a symptom of an over-lofted launch, I think, because it pitched down slightly just as it was coming out of maximum Q. And it's this little dip here in the angle of side slip that you can see on the wiki that tells you that you have a slightly over-lofted launch. But I actually have found that to be just fine for this launch profile. We're not completely horizontal yet. We're still heading up a little bit so that we can reach a more safe altitude before we start really putting on the velocity we need to get into orbit. Basically, the way that I tested this when I was putting this design together was you kind of put your Q, your angle of side slip, and your pitch on your flight recorder from MacLeod, which is in the menu up here, and then you can just match the pictures against what's in the wiki for what the different launch profiles should look like, and that has gotten me kind of where I am, where it's pretty well reliable, pretty well works. So yeah, just kind of follow through that. I haven't quite figured out all of the intricacies, but we are getting there. Just 5 more seconds until our booster cuts off. It looks like this wants to burn our second stage immediately, so no reason to deny it that. So let's go ahead and get the RCS turned on and the engine fired up, and it looks like the AJ-10 is successful for now. I love it. As we are getting more and more data, this number is going down, but not nearly as quickly as I was really hoping that it would. I know that the intention was for the AJ-1037 to be a fairly unreliable rocket based on the track record of the Vanguard. But I was really hoping that with a bunch of data, it would really start going down fast, and that has not been the case so far. But yeah, well, it's been fine. It's been working okay, and the number is going down. It's just not going to be like a 0% like reliable launch every time rocket until we upgrade it at least one more time, which hopefully we'll be able to do fairly soon. We are getting a lot more science. Let's see, let's make sure our science is happening. Still need this for a moment longer. Invalid situation, running, waiting. Okay, cool. So this is ready to do science as we are able to. And yeah, this. So that is handled. Meanwhile, you see that this has automatically extended now that we are totally out of the atmosphere, which means that we are going to connect using this more efficient antenna rather than the one that is built in. What's happening right now is the biggest reason why I like using MacLeod's guidance, because I have no idea what it's doing, but it's going to get us into a trajectory that's about right. and get our apoapsis right to where it needs to be, and also get us into an orbit. It's not going to get us into like the exact parameters that we wanted, but this gets us like 99% of the way there. And main engine cut off, and look at that. Look at how perfect that is. 897 kilometers. And now I can disengage the autopilot and run the rest of this mission myself. But yeah, like it got us exactly there, and we have the entire upper stage to play with. Another almost 4,000 meters per second of delta V. So great, just so fantastic. It was all basically done because I was able to put up a payload 1/4 of the mass of the payload that I had before. And that's it. Like that's all that I really changed here. I changed the avionics, which allowed us to reduce our mass in batteries, and then I reduced the and because I was able to do that, I was able to reduce the weight overall, make some other changes for efficiency, and here we are. We have this lovely thing in orbit. And heading up we are on our coast phase. We have 45 minutes until we hit apoapsis. According to this, we have an hour and 15 minutes until we get there. The reason why that is such a big shortage in our battery is because we are trying to power the much more power-hungry Able avionics package that we have here, because this has 3 tons of guidance, and so it has a much more powerful computer that it needs to run. But in 45 minutes, we are going to kick off this stage and just have this running, and that is going to bring us to those perpetual numbers, and hopefully that is going to keep us in power forever, and even if not forever, then for a long while, which is what I have been looking for. That is going to get us our science, and is going to get us what we need to execute this mission and a bunch of others on the way. Alrighty, we are about 30 seconds out, and unfortunately on the dark side, so we are going to turn off our rotation controller, and we are going to begin to spin, and we are also going to turn on the thrusters to stabilize our propellant, because we only have a little bit that we need to do to get this to our correct periapsis, so we can do it right on top of the on our apoapsis. We just need to bring that up just a tiny bit. And off we go. And there we go. That's it. Just that tiny little burn that leaves us with the vast majority of our propellant left over. And that should have us checking for stable orbit. And we have a nice spin, which should hopefully get us the ability to get good sunlight on this orbit, so that the satellite will be useful for more than just this contract. Success! We are getting more Doppler curves to refine our navigation algorithms. Yeah, so as I mentioned before, it was the high velocity satellites hurtling overhead in orbit, sending out radio waves that were being affected by the Doppler shift, and we were able to detect that from Earth, and that is a big way that we are able to navigate by satellite, is because we can detect the way that the Doppler shift affects those communications. And so there we go. We are there. We only got a little bit of money out of that, which is unfortunate. I think we got a lot more upfront than we did for the actual payment, but this has proven that this is a very effective design. We have left ourselves with a huge amount of delta V, so we can get into very interesting orbits, I think. There was a bunch of contracts that I went over that I thought, like, no, there's no way. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this one because we don't have a capable enough rocket. Suddenly we do. So yeah, we will be revisiting that. All right, we got sunlight on the solar panels. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to decouple this probe from because now the contract is finished and it doesn't actually matter what orbit this thing is in. So we are just going to decouple. And there we go. Now we just have this probe by itself in orbit doing a lovely barbecue roll. And when we have the solar panel maximum, I think that was this, that is no longer in control. When this is as high as possible, like if we can get that 38% and then jump back to the Space Center at that point, then we get to actually keep that 38%. And I think that should keep us just about perpetual. So as you can see, like, yeah, this even with just this much sunlight on the panels, which is not nearly as much as it could be, we are getting tons of power because not all of our not all of our research experiments are running all of the time, and so they are shut down until they become usable, and then they will turn on and use some power and then turn back off. But until then, this should, in theory, run all the time and be my first permanent live satellite in orbit. So fantastic. I'm really happy with how this worked, and I'm really looking forward to doing more. All right, we are just a couple of seconds away from the completion of our mission control upgrade. Ta-da! There we go. Now we have a couple of different things that has unlocked. Just like in regular Kerbal Space Program, along with the upgrade of the tracking station, that gives us maneuver nodes, which I am just like unreasonably excited to get. Like, we are so many episodes in, and we're only just now getting maneuver nodes, which is, you know, incredibly exciting because we are going to be able to do all sorts of cool things. And I'll be able to do manually plot my courses a lot better than I have been. And I can actually use that in conjunction with MacLeod to make very precise orbital maneuvers, which I'm pretty stoked about. So, and that also allows us to have a couple more contracts. I'd have to do a little bit of a redesign to do the Lunar Orbiter contract, but with the technology that we have right now, we could probably do that. I think we have enough Delta V to get there and put like a teeny tiny payload up there, like a Pioneer satellite kind of payload with a little tiny orbital retro rocket. Some of the Pioneer spacecraft actually had like a tiny reverse mounted solid rocket booster. And speaking of which, that is going to be the very next thing that we attempt to do. So just as the Pioneer satellites were teeny tiny spacecraft that were used to be some of the first American spacecraft that attempted to leave Earth's orbit, Pioneer 1 is my attempt to do the same. If everything goes well, this will leave Earth's orbit, head out to the moon, fly past the moon, or at least get an encounter with the moon, and then smash directly into it. So we'll need to do some updates to this craft to have it send up a tiny payload, but I think I could even use the little Pioneer model from Raider Nick. But yeah, so we'll do a little bit of redesign for that, but that is just two big contracts that we can knock out at once. All right, here on the pad we have my Pioneer 1 spacecraft, which has been thoroughly tweaked and tuned as per our last discussion on this. So let's see if we can get this into a proper orbit. So engage autopilot, throttling up. Everything looks good. Let's go ahead and stage it off. All right. Yeah, so I kind of went through a whole long thing about the ways that I've tweaked this, but the TLDR is I've had trouble with the payload fairings being involved in the staging. And if you remove them, then all of a sudden MacLeod has much better information. And if MacLeod has the correct information, it is able to give you correct guidance. If it does not have correct information, it therefore gives you not good guidance. So garbage in, garbage out. That is why my rocket was flying so weirdly and why I kept complaining about that before. So I apologize for that. But yeah, now we are on our way, and this rocket flies so much better than it did. Now that it has the correct information, and I just feel like I have so much more Delta V. I have so much more capability with just the same rocket, the same configuration, the same technology. It all works just so much better. The only thing that might get in our way is if one of these rockets fails because of test light, which would not be great, but would also not be the end of the world. We have plenty of time until we need to complete these contracts. It'd be great if we could just knock them out now, but yeah, this is the rocket that I have configured very specifically to accomplish this mission. Another thing that you can see as we have a whole another minute until we finish the burn on our main engine here is you can see what MacLeod has planned for you down here, as I've mentioned before. And looking at that, you can see, you can kind of match that against your own staging and if you have correct information, it will give you very correct assessment of what it is going to do. So you can see that now it is going to burn out my first stage, and then it is going to coast. And then it is going to be able to circularize with not all of my fuel in my upper, in the Able stage on top here, my second stage, which is, fabulous. It means we have a bunch of extra room to fuss around if we need to. But yeah, so we're going to be able to get this into a nice circular orbit at about 250 kilometers. I have not changed my inclination because I don't think I need to. I'm fairly certain I am at least pretty close to the proper launch window to get from Earth to the moon. I haven't used any tools to figure out what that is. I've only just kind of looked at, I just kind of eyeballed it in the tracking window as it flew around the planet. So yeah, we are about 90 kilometers up, so I think we can safely stage and slowly drift out of this fairing, and it just kind of holds itself steady. And there you go, pretty fantastic, looking good so far. Now we have a 3-minute coast phase as this gets up to the correct altitude to circularize. All right, coming out of warp about 20 seconds ahead of our the end of our coast phase and getting ready for our burn. You can see that MacLeod is now moving us to be in the correct position. And yeah, I just love how capable this system is. And with how itty bitty the probe is up on, oh no! All right, well, that's that for this one, I suppose. Shoot. Actually, I wonder, hold on, disengage autopilot, that's obviously not going to help me anymore. Okay, no, we could get into orbit, but there's no particular good reason to do so. We would not be even close to lunar altitude. So yeah, that is a failure, unfortunately. There were a lot of failures on this, and this is the reason why you would want to use something other than the AJ1037, which this particular configuration is just bad news because, as I've mentioned before, they took its reliability rating from the Vanguard program, which did not have a good track record. The mission that I'm attempting to recreate here, Pioneer 0, 1, and 2, all 3 failed. All right, here we have attempt number 2. I apologize for the dark nighttime launch, but I have 800 funds left and we are in a bit of a hurry. So let's engage the autopilot. And we have an ignition failure. All right, so I may have to accept another contract just to get enough money to float us. You're going to recover the vessel back to the VAB. All right, another nighttime launch, once again, because we are dealing with launch windows. So we are going to engage the autopilot, stage it up. There we go. Okay, and looks like we have thrust, so release. All right, we are off once again. Yeah, so hopefully this one works. I don't have a whole lot more to say than I did last time, so I think we will just cut to when we get to our Able stage separation, or if there's a failure. All right, just about Miko. 2, 1, and there we go. All right, so we'll coast for just a moment, and then I will release our upper stage, and hopefully we will get ourselves out to a lovely orbit and not, have the AJ1037 fail on us again. All right, so we've got 20 seconds of coast time left until hopefully the AJ1037 fires, but because I separated my booster so late, it's cracking me up because it's just kind of lurking there like, what are you gonna do? You gonna just fly away or something? You're gonna leave me here to fall back to Earth and burn up? Really? Is that what you're gonna do? And we are spinning up the ullage. And hey, we have ignition! Fantastic! I was a little worried that was going to fail again. So yeah, I accepted an early navigation contract to help us along, but we are going to help us, fund our space program until we can get these moving. Because once these missions finish, hopefully we will have a tremendous amount of money. So yeah, we are moving up on our Able stage, which, if this was a more reliable engine, would be just a fantastic, highly capable upper stage. I'm working right now, even as we speak, on open. Yeah. So in just 221 days, we will have 1958 orbital rocketry, which is what I prioritized in the tech tree after getting we finished the supersonic node, but I haven't done anything with it yet because I'm broke. So we'll be doing more with that when I have money, so I can talk about it in a minute. But I'm also have coming up 1958 orbital rocketry, which is going to give us much more capable and reliable engines. So we will do yet another redesign, and that's probably when I'm going to plan to work on my lunar orbiter once I have a more reliable set of engines. But the money that we're going to get from this should take us all the way there, and that will be fantastic. So let's see, we have 20 seconds of burn. Well, we actually have to do 6 seconds of burn left, but we are just about finished. 2, 1, boop. And then this is my favorite thing about this, is that it actually finishes off your orbit with your ullage thrusters, with your RCS that you have on there. Like, that's so good. I love that so much. So yeah, our guidance is finished. Our ascent is complete. We are in orbit. Fabulous. So now all we have to do is make sure I don't run out of power as we swing around the planet to make our maneuver out to the moon, because the moon is on the same side as our launch. And so my idea was we were going to fly around to the apoapsis, or the other side of the orbit, and then we were going to make our escape. And I'm pretty sure, theoretically, we should have plenty of power to do that. We don't have connection now, which is because we are over the ocean. Okay, we have connection once again. Fantastic. So yeah, so we are going to, man, this is just a cluttered mess. I wonder if there's probably a way for me to clean some of those things up so you guys can see what the heck is going on. But for now, I guess you're just going to have to trust me. All right, so this is a planning failure because I thought what the heck is happening here? Oh, look at that. You can actually turn on all the radiation stuff from Kerbalism by pressing a button that I keep pressing over and over again to put in numbers. Anyways, I think I had, I mentioned before that I was eyeballing my lunar launch window to get to the moon, and I think I had it tilted by 90 degrees. So yeah, it is actually a really bad time for me to be only one orbit away from this rocket failing. So what do you do? But even still, with this rocket, it's capable enough to get us an intercept. So we should be able to get a flyby, even with this terrible failure on my part to plan this properly. So yeah, we really are recreating the Pioneer program. All right, so yeah, we've put this node together, and that should theoretically work. If not, then, well, I mean, as I keep saying, we'll try something else. But yeah, our technology is increasing all the time. Our capabilities are increasing. We should be able to get one more of these Pioneer probes off before even before 1958 orbital rocketry, and I think I still have a couple hundred days until the contract fails for me for the impactor. So I'll have to double check on that when we get back to mission control. But for now, we are just going to get ourselves in the correct orientation and then warp around and hopefully be able to execute this burn. All right, so I've had to adjust the burn just slightly because we once again didn't have connection at the time of the node actually being there, which, of course. But we should still be able to make this. Even a couple minutes late, we are just hopefully skimming right through the edge of the lunar sphere of influence, and we have successfully separated. And hopefully this will make it to its destination. The nice thing about this maneuver is it is intended to use all of this, all of the delta V on this probe, and then nothing else. So that should get us out there and dip us into the sphere of influence of the moon. All right, 10 more seconds of burn time. Hopefully there's no failures or anything. We are spinning gently, just like the Pioneer missions did. And there we go, just 1.7 meters per second shy. And let's see how we did. Looks like we have an encounter. Yes, fantastic. And it's only going to be a day out. Yeah, so I was wrong on a lot of accounts as far as the distance to the moon, or the time distance to the moon, I should say. How long this type of encounter would take to get there, because this is not a gentle home and transfer. This is a let's just fly by and go screaming off into an Earth escape trajectory, which, that's the kind of thing you got to do sometimes. So hopefully this gets out from behind Earth's shadow. All right, so we have glorious sunlight that is powering up our craft as it heads off in the direction of the moon. So I guess the philosophical question is whether it's a cliffhanger if we already know what the result is going to be. Yeah, we're going to have to leave it there for now as this probe heads off in the direction of the moon. We'll see what the ultimate fate is, and I'll talk a little bit about the history of the probes that attempted this mission in US rocket history. So if you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and give me a like and subscribe. Leave some comments below. Let me know what you thought. Any advice or feedback that you have, I'm always happy to get it, and I will see you next time.